have Andrew Newman and Heath and Duncan McLeod. I think I saw him come in. Good morning, gentlemen. Grab a seat. Just we had one of the action items was talking about the mayors being here. I think the next item is probably going to have further discussion, and with the indulgence of the council, I'd actually like to invite the mayors to the table for that item with an opportunity to ask questions, etc. So,
sure.
Everyone happy with that? Yep. Thank you. Okay.
Oh, thanks, Chairman. I'll be brief. Just by way of introduction, particularly new councillors probably haven't met Duncan McLeod. Duncan's the commercial manager working with me on the revenue side of the project. So what I will get Duncan to do is just give councillors a little bit of an insight into the uptake work strand, where that sits in a moment as part of the report. But I'll spend 5 to 10 minutes just going through it, and then Duncan, he's here to take questions around the financial side of things. So we've got it reasonably well covered. Okay, just standard report here. We're in the execution phase, or scheme assessment execution phase of this project. I should just note before getting into that, though, that obviously the council and the company has appointed a new director to the Port of Napier. That's been confirmed at the AGM, which is held on Monday. I also want to note, just for the record, that the performance of the Port of Napier over the past year has been, as usual, in pretty solid shape, with a good outlook going ahead. And thank goodness for the forest industry, would be my point there.
Could you name the director?
Wendy
Harvey.
Yeah, Wendy Harvey, who's had a legal background, health and safety background, essentially. Spent a number of years with Unison in senior executive roles, and now works on her own behalf. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I assume the mayors have got copies of the agenda?
Big assumption, unless they've
They should have.
been perusing our website, probably not. Would you like a copy? Peter's got something there. What's that? The Farmers Weekly.
Right. Okay, so look, what I've got here in this report is just to give you a bit of a feel for where we're at with some deadlines. It's a complex piece of work with 4 big work strands. I'll just traverse those briefly. Obviously, we've got the Board of Inquiry process running with the EPA, assessing the environmental effects, etc. That's the same process. That's running at the moment. There's a bit of light reading on the website of people wanting to get stuck into the transcripts. Some of it's entertaining, some of it's not so entertaining, but it just tunes on. And that hearings process is due to have, I think, about 4 days in the new year and conclude at that point. So starting the 15th, so it'll be over and done with by about the 19th, I think, off the top of my head of January. And we're still anticipating that the board will have a draft decision out by mid to late February. Okay, with a statutory time frame conclusion the 6th of April. Next big work strand running in parallel is design and construct. So what we're doing there is we've taken a feasibility level design and estimate for the scheme. We've run a process, a big process really with a lot of rigour in it, to identify constructors capable of undertaking this piece of work. That started in December of last year. We had 5 expressions of interest in February. We narrowed that down to 2 consortia. One was French-led, that's Bouygues. The other being OHL Hawkins, Spanish, New Zealand-based joint venture. And both those parties undertook a competitive bidding process through a 4.5-month period. Those bids landed on the table. We undertook a major assessment process over a period of just under 2 months, and that assessment process has arrived at the point where we've identified a preferred and a reserved contractor there, with the preferred being OHL Hawkins. And for the past 4 to 5 weeks, we've been in a detailed negotiation with RHL Hawkins about the optimisation of their bid to us, basically. So as of today, that's in pretty good shape, actually. From my point of view, we're all but there. But I do note in the report that we're due to have what we call a fixed time, fixed price bid on the table by 14th of February next year. Okay? So that's a major development. And it's fair to say, I'll be quite upfront about it, get the wrong construction bid, wrong service offering, too much risk and or the wrong price, and that's one of the critical go, no-go elements of the deal. So the message I'm sending you is we're in good shape. Okay? On that phase, I'll leave water uptake to Duncan, but turning to capital structure and investment, we obviously have, as everybody's aware, we have a investor consortium now comprising Trustpower, Ngāi Tahu Capital and HBRIC Ltd. We have two other elements to the proposed capital structure, the first being the contribution from Crown Irrigation Investments, and I'll talk about that briefly in a minute. And the second element to the proposed capital structure is the proposed release of a information memorandum for eligible investors in this community, which we're scheduling to release in January of next year, subject to us getting some of the elements of the capital structure nailed down. We're in quite a significant engagement with Crown Irrigation Investments right now, and I'm expecting that we'll have a term sheet sorted out by January of 2014 in terms of their proposed investment. What I would say is, and I do note this, that all of those moving elements are obviously condition precedent. So nobody's going to invest until we know where the consenting position sits. So that's major condition precedent issue. There will be a condition precedent issue around revenue and water uptake, enough to justify flicking the switch on build, and also on shareholder approval, which is leading to your paper next. So I would say that particularly that financing and capital structure issues in quite good shape from where I sit, and that's another major moving element that I want to have sorted out pretty smartly, really. That leads me back to on the first page, the potential investment recommendation from HBRIC to HBRC. So what we're proposing from HBRIC Ltd is subject to draft consent conditions, finalisation of DNC terms, consolidation of the financial case and the investor capital structure. Then we're considering tabling the business case and recommendations to HBRC towards the end of February 2014. Okay? So, Duncan, you might want to just talk about water uptake briefly, if you can. Thanks. Grab that.
This one's the light on. Yes, I've been with the project for 8 months now, primarily focusing on the uptake workstream, which has gone quite well. We certainly beat our internal target we had set for the end of October. There's just a bit of an analysis, I guess, on the uptake we've had so far, and up on the projector there we've got the split between new water and deep water migration. So we've got 7.1 million cubes where people have signed an expression of interest, looking to, rather than use water out of the aquifer, to actually take it out of the dam. That would be quite helpful for, I guess, the hydrology in the area. It would take a bit of pressure year on year off the groundwater resource and perhaps add to surface water. So that would be a good thing for the community. 42.7 million cubes in total, 35.5 million of essentially new water in the area. The zone segmentation, which is the detail below that, shows there's interest from certainly all areas. Different areas shot out in front first. I think Zone M saw itself as being reasonably geographically isolated, so it moved quite quickly. The strongest one's Zone C, and for those who aren't familiar with the map, Zone C's where Ashcott Road and Burnside and Speedy Roads all run through. So it's an area, that's got quite a large proportion of irrigable area as a percentage of it.
Have you got that map on any slides? No, probably not.
The area of
I don't, sorry.
I'll tell you, I'll draw it for you.
It's the draw it for us. It's the area that Ashcott Road and Burnside roads run through. So it's an area that's very well farmed at the moment. It's got quite a large proportion of flat land. It's well suited to irrigation.
Duncan, thanks for that. That's excellent. That deep water migration, I presume, is that the guys that are giving up their rights to deep water wells and migrating to the dam? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's right. So, but it would be so that the expression of interest document for deep water users. We've essentially got two different expression of interest documents we've been using. One is for new water, so people who are water short and want more. And I'd have to say, existing irrigators do contribute to the new water segment as well, because some just don't have enough water and they'd irrigate more land. But the deep water migration,
I just have another question on that. During the EPA in the last few weeks, some of the guys who have deep wells are going to retain their rights.
yes.
And what effect's that going to have? Because I understand it's quite a few of the major players.
Yeah, so it's changed a bit, like the first draft of proposed Plan Change 6 in May was quite different to what we've ended up with currently, or what it looks like it's going to end up with currently. So it's probably taken a little bit of pressure off the existing groundwater consent holders. And by that I mean they'll have access to a little more, it looks like they're going to have access to a little more water than what they might have otherwise. There's probably three main reasons why people have elected to sign an expression of interest and to take it out of the dam rather than the groundwater resource. And one of them's purely around price. So if they're pumping from quite deep, that's quite expensive. The expression of interest talks about water at 10 cents a cube for a 5-year period. So there is a price advantage to some. Others, their infrastructure, be it the bore or their pumps, aren't actually adequate to access the amount of water they're consented for, so they've got an infrastructure issue. And so they're, rather than upgrade their infrastructure, they're happy to support this project. And the third one is, there's some that essentially see this as a pretty good way to, as opposed to paying a power company, they can pay the dam and support the project and help essentially get it off the ground, which long term they see as being quite supportive of having future access to groundwater in the area. So I guess quite a number see Central Hawke's Bay and Ruataniwha groundwater as being safer and more accessible into the future if there's a water storage facility operated in the area.
I'm not an expert on this, but I'm really confused that all of a sudden over the last 3 weeks we are, as a council, are allowing people over 60 metres, or 50 or 60, whatever it is, I thought it was 60, to continue to access the water in this bath tank that we have, and that's okay. And that's non-depleting.
So, Duncan,
Probably sits outside my area, I'm afraid.
So yeah, and I'll make a comment as well, Councillor Graham. The reality is that's not an HBRIC. HBRIC's got no influence on that. It's a specifically a council issue, and it's the plan change. And the point would be the underlying issue is that in a consenting sense, though, or even a plan change sense, I can give you a sort of a view from where we sit, and that is that our understanding of the hydrology and the modelling and so forth is that the modelling's sophisticated enough to actually interpret and cumulative effects it takes. But the tricky bit around the RMA is that ultimately, when it comes down to an individual consent, you have to be able to track the specific impact and effect down to the individual consent. So the groundwater modelling will pick up the cumulative impact, but it can't trace it to an exact bore. So I guess the technical argument being conducted through the EPA process is around how precise is that and what's the impact. Now, but the underlying point is that and I would agree that every bit of water in that catchment, which is let's face it, a little unusual in the New Zealand context, and you've got the mountains, you've got an inland basin, montane sort of inland alluvial outwash basin, runs through the limestone ridge, comes down a narrow channel. Every bit of water in that catchment is self-contained in the catchment, and it ultimately appears in the surface flow. So So the debate being conducted through that process is as to what absolute effect there is. But the point I'd make
I'm really, so in the future, anyone who drills a 60-metre well doesn't have to tap into our project?
no, I don't think that's the case. I
Or
think there's
existing 60-metre wells?
there's going to be a constraint, and I guess that's going to be the Board of Inquiry will determine what that is in terms of the allocation. But there'll be a quite substantial constraint. So even with the trend that we're seeing, in terms of is there unfettered access to water? No.
And I guess the point there, just supplementary, the process isn't finished yet either, is it?
No, the process is not finished. So there are constraints, and it boils down to a judgment call that they'll make as to are those constraints pitched correctly. But the underlying point is there unfettered access to groundwater? Well, absolutely not.
Chair, are you... Oh, sorry.
No, Councillor Bell.
I mean, just to follow up on this, I mean, observing this process, this is one of a number of areas where what appears to be happening is evidence is presented or submitters are coming into the Board of Inquiry raising various issues or objections or what have you. What appears to be occurring is that then they go off to the side room, have a discussion, and point to some other outcome or accommodation that might be made in this process, and that so the feedback that then eventually loops back is the sort that Councillor Graham is raising, that there's a perception that well, some significant potential scheme water users are not going to be scheme water users. That revenue will not therefore materialize, and it's not clear how this gets, how all these pieces ultimately get fitted together at the end of the day. According to this schedule that you've outlined, there'll be an interim, a draft report, I guess is what it's called, from the Board of Inquiry in the middle of February. At that point, that's the first time anyone will sort of see the big picture reassembled. What sort of conditions have been negotiated, how all these pieces fitted together, and then by the beginning of April, I guess, there's a final decision from the Board of Inquiry. So that window in there seems to be like a pretty critical window, and it's not clear. I haven't seen the Board of Inquiry or anyone else articulate what happens in that window when you have to reconsider whether all the pieces fit together to the satisfaction of whomever, this HBRIC or to this council. What is the process for that? How does that actually get reviewed, or who does the review of it? Because